even for the last 2 weeks.
Our coaches be hidden in the back.
Well, yeah, I thought it was until August they couldn't do it, but I think they changed that.
We'll open our first public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise their hand. Mr. Harbison, how are you? Good to see you.
Bob Harbison, 1614 Huntington View. I always say Gloucester Township instead of coming to New Jersey. It's a disgrace we don't have our own post office. Right? Yeah, on Broad Acres there, the geese are driving me up the wall. I can't even look out my parking from since they put the new thing in there. Down the bottom, we never had them on our side as much as they have it. It's like a pool down there.
Okay.
It needs either put a fence down there to keep them out, or put about 2 truckloads of stone in there to build it up even so they can't get in there and swim.
No, you never had that issue before, Mr.
We
Harbison?
never had that before, right?
You have Public Works take a look at
That, and the Getty station is the grass about that high again. Whoever we gave this contract to out in your parking lot, they should never get another one. Because the WPA worked better in the 30s without all this equipment. Figure it out yourself. It's a disgrace. There's tractors, there's trailers up in the ShopRite parking lot in the back. I don't know if they have tags on them or they're paying taxes on it.
On the Blackwood Clement Road side?
Back at the back, yeah. There's 3 trailers back there. They use it for storage. So if they're using it for storage, they should be
It's
paying
a shop.
taxes on it.
Yeah, shop right on Blackwood.
No. Are you talking about Blackwood Clement Road, the shop right?
Shop right
Hill?
there, yeah.
So are they, you don't believe
They
they're...
don't move.
They don't move, they're not shop, you don't believe they're shop right
Yeah.
tractors?
I mean,
That's something we can, Chief's not here.
collect taxes off of them. I don't think there's old tags on them.
Mr. Harbison, I'll reach out to code enforcement and see if they can take a look at
Huh?
that. I'll reach out to code enforcement and see if they take a look at that, but
Take care of the grass there on Blackwood. Those geese are terrible out there. They stop traffic quite often out there too. They gotta do something with them.
thank you very much.
See if we can get some stone put in there.
We'll contact Public Works and have Public Works go out and take a look at it.
Seascon.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Have a great day. Anyone else? Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, Council. I need to see you. Thank you.
Yes.
Polidoro area. In response to your asking the town, one of the reasons that we had done so in putting it here is when the public stands here to speak with you, it's obstructing the view of council members. The objective is to have the cameras set on all council members. Moving it side to side, I'm going to obstruct somebody, so I'll request respectfully during these, and I won't be at many, but the ones that I am, that I be able to have a view that would not be obstructive of any of our council members, and ask that request be granted. If I have to stand there, with the cord, and
That's a concern. That's one of the things in the resolution that was passed many years ago. You could not obstruct with cords and what have you, aisleways, because someone could trip.
well, if you recall, when it was people other than myself that was recording, it was done over here as well, and there was back and forth. Listen, I had to responsibly handle the camera and make sure that no one gets injured. I just asked that I not be put back in an obstructive view of council. After all, the video is of council, not as much.
What's obstructing? I'm sorry. What am I?
If
Well,
someone's
we sit
standing
down
here,
here.
no matter where I move the camera, it was either blocking you and Michelle out, or Mr. Mercado, or Tom, when somebody's standing here, when you're shooting from the back. Whereas in a normal council meeting, you're up and above, there's no obstructive view. So like I said, if you can see it through, that I can responsibly do that, and I don't imagine there's going to be many workshops that are crowded. See if you can work that out.
We'll take it under consideration.
There you go. Thank you.
Mr. Polidoro, it doesn't run on a battery, does it?
The battery's a funny thing. You plug in, the battery gets older. The one thing I try to present is that the video run continuously, no editing, no anything. It only has a 1.97 gig of space before it starts over anew. So, I run it however I can. The battery sometimes, once it goes, if you try to plug in, you interrupt, and the objective is not to interrupt it, to keep a continuous running video. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. Mr. Carlemaire, discussion of fire scene board up ordinance.
Council remembers last month, agenda meeting, I was diligent, and we circulated a copy of the resolution or ordinance that you have in the township and so on. And it deals with board up structures and fire damaged buildings. This really initiated from the mayor's directors meetings with some complaints were coming out that dealt mainly with fire scene issues where there's a response to a fire scene. You have a lot of these board up companies that will respond and they're out there while the firefighters and police are trying to control the scene, and they're just waiting to speak with the property owners to get the contracts for boarding up and perhaps assessing damages, but mostly with board up. One of the things we first talked about is trying to control that as we do the car accident scenes with the police doing the rotation list of towers that come out to tow vehicles and regulate the charge. But kind of going through, and I felt that was more of a trade restriction, business restriction, more so than the towers, because towers is a statutory authority to do it in that fashion. So then we started looking at some surrounding towns, and the only one we were able to get a copy of an ordinance was Pennsauken, and that's what you have before you. There are some surrounding towns that are starting to look at the same issue, to come up with some type of regulation to make it a more orderly response, specifically at fire scenes. I think this one, Pennsauken, kind of accomplishes that, classifies these board-up companies that are responding to fire scenes to come under our canvassers, our solicitors ordinance, requires them to get a license, and just like we do other hawkers and solicitors, that they have a badge. So then when they're at a fire scene, the fire chief or fire marshal or police officer sees that they were already registered with the town. They did a background check that all the licensees get in the township. So they know who's approaching the residents under that type of circumstance. And I think this one does it pretty good control without infringing on trade or out trying to set prices. And so we thought we would jump off this one to come up with something that's applicable to the township of Gloucester.
Are these type of companies, are they presently registered in our township as?
No, they come from Philadelphia, they come from all over. Sometimes you'll see at a fire scene, there might be 3 or 4 different companies.
So perhaps they have a
waiting.
scanner, they're listening to something, and they make their way over
So
here.
if 3 or 4 of them show up, how do you make the decision on who?
Well, as long as they're licensed, then it's free enterprise.
So it'll be up to the owner, the homeowner?
Correct. Once the scene is released from the fire marshal or the police, they can speak to the homeowners and set their price, their contract. The homeowner makes a decision on which company he or she wants to hire.
Who controls the list to know what business comes up next? So I guess we haven't heard anything negative on the tower.
We're not going to do it on our own.
Oh, we won't.
I think
Okay.
when you do it with towers, it's a statutory authority to do that. State
Okay,
police
I'm
do it
sorry, I
also.
misunderstood.
And you're really handling a different situation. You're getting an emergency accident off the highway for safety reasons. And it allows you to control the statutory, it allows you to set fees and all those kind of things. In this situation, I don't think the statute goes that direction. So I think you'd be infringing on trade, try to control prices and what have you, or put them on a rotation list. Gloucester County, the county has a list that's that fashion. From what I understand, it's not working out well. It's one of the reasons you don't see it in Camden County out of the county organization. So I kind of thought as an initial start, this might make some sense. At least they're required to show that they're credible companies that are coming in at the fire scenes, and as long as the individual has a certificate from the township, fire marshal or police or who's ever there, fire chief, can allow them to stay when the fire scene is released, then they can freely speak to the property.
So are we taking responsibility that when they have the license that they are credible? What check are we going to do?
They come in
Make
for
sure
their
they're
licenses and they go through a background police check.
And that's annual?
Yeah, and it'll be an annual license.
What kind of fee is it?
This says $25, and I kind of thought that was
Yeah.
supposed to be different.
Who's going to go through background check, the guy or the business?
Well, once we start drafting it out, I would tend to think each individual, like we do with other hawkers and solicitors, anybody that's going to be doing it for the company has to have their picture on, so they know that this is somebody that has a license issue.
Well, for the solicitors, we usually do it for the company and 3 people, so we could do something like that.
Correct.
David, is it the same folks or companies that are showing up at these sites? Because how do we notify XYZ company coming out of Mount Holly that this is something that they have to adhere to? Is it the fire chief who's on the scene? Is it up to him to enforce this?
Yeah, fire chief or the fire marshal. This says fire chief, fire marshal, or officer that's out there. We'll ask them for their identification. If they don't have it, they're not licensed, then during that course, at least that course of the fire scene, they cannot interfere. Once the fire scene is released and the fire marshal goes, I guess anyone can knock on the individual's door, but then they're in violation of the ordinance because they don't have a canvasser's license or a solicitor's license. You still see them on the street, even though we have an ordinance on that. People have knocked on my doors and I ask them for their license and they say, well, I forgot my picture. I said, well, you're supposed to have your picture. And I say, okay.
Gives them a hard time.
And they leave. So it's just, you're going to do the best you can to try and control the circumstances specifically.
So should we reach out to the 6 fire districts and say, can you identify the companies that you normally show up at your sites?
Yeah, you can, and they can tell you who's.
Well, I don't want, XYZ company coming out and saying, hey, I wasn't aware of this.
So then you send them notification that that'll be starting with an
Yeah.
effective date of whatever. Seems reasonable.
And then Dave, you said they would talk to the homeowner. What happens in the event that the homeowner's not home? Let's say they're out on vacation or something like that.
And I think the township would do it under any circumstances that it does to
For
contact
safety.
somebody to board up the property.
Right.
Then however they communicate with the homeowner, for any other care they have to have.
Do we limit the licenses, or, I mean, if there are 10 people who we feel are, I mean, I'm imagining someone who's just had a fire now, 10 people are trying to approach them to board their home. Is there any way to, I don't know, limit that, or?
In talking to some of the fire chiefs throughout the township, the comment is you usually get about 2 to 3 that show up at the fire scenes. Because you're seeing more and more competition coming in, and they're just coming in from the Philadelphia area, they all have scanners. And so usually you see maybe 2 or 3 there that will sit back and wait, that kind of stuff. Some try to interfere, they have to tell them to step back, so we kind of thought this ordinance made some sense, give you some kind of credibility to who's out there.
Well, I guess it helps you if you have a problem with this specific company,
Right.
know who your problem is.
You guys okay with this? Okay, looking forward to that. Discussion number 2, discussion of amendment to chapter 67A to include New Jersey Abandoned Properties Act.
This also came up at a director's meeting. We've also met with the housing authority. This seems to lend itself as a good vehicle to shared service with the
Before
housing.
you go forward, do you have a number 2?
No,
handout
I didn't.
for it?
Want me to make a copy? I didn't have any copies.
Yeah, I put everyone down.
Might come back into my office. Don't talk too much, won't I?
No, we jump to 3. We jump to 3, Dave. All right, we'll go to 3 while Rose is making copies. Discussion of implementation of affordability assistance certificate program under chapter 68B.
This was initiated through the housing authority, at a meeting between housing authority officials, professionals, and the township, elected or myself. They wanted to initiate an affordable housing trust fund for rental assistance. You should have all the backup information that they've provided to the mayor and administration that shows how they want to implement it. Several housing authorities throughout the state of New Jersey have the same type of programming. The investors that are the initiator financial corporation for the housing authority is recommending it. It sets forth a criteria. They'll administer it. We have the ability to use COA funds. Ken Lechner was here. That was one part of our COA plan when we were applying for third round certification that we were going to initiate through our housing authority a rental assistance program for low-income tenants. And I believe the percentage is broken down here. It's like if they're spending 30% of their income on rental and that kind of stuff, or funds on rental, that they'll qualify. It's a whole program that's broken down through the housing authority. Mr. Lechner feels, and the housing authority was requesting that it will be funded in the area of $60,000 per year of the COA funds. Right now, the township's COA fund account is probably around $500,000. We're going through the litigation as all the towns are right now, and one of the things we talked about in some of our conferences is that the township is considering this affordable housing rental assistance, and it fits into the income programs for COA that Fair Share Housing likes the concept.
Can I ask a few questions? Where did the COA funds come from in the first place?
You have this development that's on Choosland Road. I think they just paid their first payment about $75,000.
Yeah, I'm not positive.
Any type of development has taken place where they had to have set aside a certain amount of affordable housing, and if they didn't provide that, then they would make a payment in lieu of that.
So the payment in lieu is no longer taking place. Nobody deposits funds on COA.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, they do?
On an ongoing basis.
Okay, so I guess my concern is that if this rental assistance program is going to require $60K a year, what kind of funds do we expect to be coming in per year? I'm just wondering if it's sustainable.
As we're putting it together, maybe you want to bring in the management for the professional for the housing authority, have him come in and speak to you. He also is the licensed professional for some other housing authorities that initiate this similar type program. He can break down how their funding goes. But that's the number that they were giving us. The format as a resolution came from the housing authority attorney. It really should be an ordinance that you adopt.
I just think you probably want to know how much we can reasonably expect to be coming in. And are we going to be needing these COA funds for anything else?
That other program on abandoned properties, that's dovetailed with COA funds also, so there's some programs that back and circulate that. That came in as a recommendation through the housing authority also. That seems to be an attractive program to deal with your abandoned properties. Some other towns are doing it, small towns as well as large towns. I think Borough of Somerdale initiates the program today, and that program is statutory.
And this program doesn't change, like the low income, doesn't affect how much, like low income properties,
No.
how many we have, I
This-
should say.
Yeah, but
This is
strictly
strictly
a
just
rental
the assistance.
Does this help us in terms of meeting our goals?
Yeah, it's one of the elements that we initially, when we applied for third round certification, that's one of the things that we put in, as a third round certification. In our last conferences that I had with Fair Share Housing, we talked about this rental assistance and the abandoned property as a possible contribution to our meeting our code requirements.
How many complexes do we have for seniors that would be able to benefit from this one?
There's the senior campus in
One of
Franklin
them.
Square.
Senior campus. This is
Franklin
for
Square
senior
to
campus.
qualify.
This is strictly seniors.
This is senior campus.
Oh, senior campus.
So the 60,000 would be earmarked for senior campus one?
Yes. Is anyone opposed to, again, obviously, the point you made, this putting a sunset or just that we take, take a breather and take a look at it after year 3 and see if this is something that's sustainable? Do you think that the housing authority would be opposed to that, David?
Yeah, I can approach the housing authority chair.
Is 3 years, is that sufficient, or you want to go longer, or?
That's reasonable.
Okay. If they're amenable to that, if anyone doesn't have an issue with that, can we put it on the agenda?
Yeah, so it'd be more as sort of like a pilot trial program.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, 2, thank you, Rick.
You're welcome, apologize, that looks,
That was for senior campus 1.
Yes.
I guess
Yeah,
What's the-
once it's good.
Is it limited to just those
Is it
campuses?
sustainable as long as it's sustainable?
Yeah.
So what was it, 3 years to evaluate the sustainability when it comes to maintenance?
All right, David.
New Jersey statute, there's a new section of the statute that's a couple years ago, that allows municipalities to identify abandoned properties and actually take ownership or possession of the properties with a certain criteria that has to be met, which talks about the homes have to be legally, not been legally occupied for a period of 6 months, and need a rehabilitation, building unsuitable for occupancy, property taxes remain unpaid, properties are abandoned, boarded up, and what have you. This also was initiated through the Housing Authority, and then came to the mayor and administration to discuss the possibility of participating in this. What it does, it gives the municipality an opportunity to, first you have to identify the properties that meet the criteria. You have to then file an action with the Superior Court Chancery Division to get an order for possession. Gives you then the right, once you're in the possession, that you can rehab the properties, lien the properties. Then after a certain period of time, you actually can go back in the court and take occupancy, ownership, and sell the properties.
Camden does this, right?
I think there's a similar program in Camden. The only one I know in this area that's operating now is Somerdale. And they've initiated that perhaps maybe 6, 7 months ago.
Do we have many properties where the taxes are not being paid via the tax sale certificate?
At the last meeting, which probably was just before the July office, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, the mayor requested code enforcement to identify what properties would meet this criteria, so we need to know which ones and how many are out there. It seems like a good program. Again, it qualifies under your code because the concept seems to be that once the township takes actual ownership and sells them, it can be sold to the housing authority, which will pay the township. The statute says market rate after it's been rehabbed. They'll use whatever co-funds have been assigned to them to purchase that through the township, and they have to deed restrict it, and it has to be low-income housing.
It says here, it says at least one installment of property tax remains unpaid and delinquent on that property at the date of determination by the public officer. So it's not a matter of not having all the taxes
Correct.
paid. It's having a quarter not paid.
What worries me about the wording of what you just read is that we could theoretically manipulate, we could withhold a property from, let's say, a tax sale. It goes unpaid, we could jump in and do this, man. Does anybody follow my concern there? It's just a scary
Well, it has to
little
meet the other criteria also, though, right? Or is that just, it only has to meet one of those?
I think
Means one.
legally, we're obligated
Wow.
to put those in tax sale. I don't think you can pull it, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but you can't just pull a property from tax sale. It has to go to tax sale.
The statute says the property may be deemed to be a nuisance. Property has been found to be unfit for human habitation. Condition of vacancy of the property materially increases the risk of fire. These are all the fact finding that the legislatures went through to determine why the this statute dealing with abandoned properties should be done.
But ultimately, if a property would have to, the taxes would have to go unpaid at tax sale in order for it to.
Yeah, I think what's happening here is the mortgage company comes along, rate a tax sale, and then they pay up to 4 quarters.
Right.
So this is protecting us because it's addressing that action that mortgage companies are taking, where they don't pay during the year,
Right.
and they just pay cumulatively.
I don't know if that answers.
And it requires court approval. You just don't do it arbitrarily in the township. It requires court approval.
I just don't want to be in the business of taking. But I guess it is an abandoned property, nobody's living in the property.
Correct.
Yeah, that will become a blight on community. Now, how many properties do we want or need for this COA?
Well, we haven't settled the litigation yet. Our third round certification, I think the range goes to the year 2025. With the recent appellate decision, kind of restricted fair share housing a little. They brought that number reduced by 30%. If I recall the last conference we had, fair share housing says Gloucester Township should have a requirement of 1,000 with 15 more units through 2025. Now, when we look at our numbers, we have a lot of credits to apply against that. I think our credits that we apply against it with programs that we're doing, this could be one of them. We have probably right now identified 600 credits against that. 600 properties or 600 units that are in motion and bring down that 1,015. I think the last review that we presented to Judge Famular and Fair Share Housing, our number was around 700, of which we have already exceeded 600 credits against that. So that would just leave maybe 100 or less units through the year 2025. So long as we meet all the other elements that we have in place.
Can you, I'm sorry, I know you said it, but I'm just trying to understand it. Can you repeat again what you said? Like, once we determine that it's abandoned and we filed the motion to take over the abandoned property, what happens after that? Can you explain?
Once we go through the rehab of the home, then we go back.
Inside and out?
Correct. And we go back to the court if the owner hasn't stepped up or whatever. You go back to the court, and the court will actually give you possession of the property. And then we order you to sell it. So then the thought was it's sold at market value, so the township gets its dollars back. And if we sell it to the housing authority gets the opportunity to expend COLA funds that we have. And then when they're doing that, then it has to be deed restricted for low income housing. So that then meets our criteria.
So we could wind up with a ton of low income housing.
Depending on how many is out there and how aggressively, I guess, you do the program.
So if you do the rehab, you get that money back from the owner if they do step forward during that time?
Yeah. If an owner challenges the township's right to do that, they have to post a bond. If we do that and they want to take it back, they have to pay the township all the money that we expend. And if it never happens, then you have a right to petition the court to let you sell the property.
So I definitely agree with what Dan said about evaluating the sustainability, because if you put that into play and they have to use their funds to purchase these houses now, that comes out of that money also.
Not only that, you're in the business of rehabbing these properties. I mean, if these properties get trashed, you gotta go back in, you gotta spend COLA funds to rehabilitate them. And then if there's any mold situation, now the town doesn't own these properties, right? It's the
But you
The
have
housing
to have
authority.
possession. Well, if we take the step to sell, then the housing authority could be the owner as purchaser.
Dave, is this a pressing issue? I'd like to get some additional information.
What I can do is request Lou Riccio from the Housing Authority to come in at one of your meetings and to explain how this program and the other program, how both programs operate.
I'm okay with the first one, the one we previously discussed. For this one, I would also like additional information from Summerdale, if we're able to.
Okay.
You said they're the only ones in the area that are doing this as well.
I can do that.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Take a pause on this.
When do you want it on? Do you want it in September?
Yeah. All right, number 4, transfer section of township property, block
I think everyone has a copy of the survey.
1902.
Okay. This property owner has been attempting, she's already had one purchaser that backed out of the transaction because of the rear yard encroachment. If you look at the survey, it's about a 15-foot encroachment of her pool and fence line in the township property. So that transaction, she lost. She's got another transaction coming up, a buyer on August 10th. So she made a request to the township that the township would deed her a 15-foot or 10-foot section back of her property. So we explored it, the record, reviewed it, pulled out all the other plans, because this is like one of the older housing developments, the back portion anyway. And this ground that the township has is not open space. It's township owned, but it's part of a drainage basin area. So she presented it to mayor and administration. We discussed it with Cardis, not Cardis, and Mr. Webner, and felt that the township can transfer a 15-foot piece of that property and not interfere with that basin.
Well, she bought the property not knowing that it was encroached. They didn't reveal that to her, and that should have came up.
How long has she been there? Like, a long,
Been there a long
it's over a long time? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, at least, at the very least.
So we requested that this township administration is not opposed to it. We told her it would have to be at her expense. She would have to get a surveyor to identify the legal description for the 15-foot that would be deeded to her. Then that surveyor has to then give her a needs and bounds description consolidating that 15-foot with this piece of property.
And this is otherwise unusable ground to the town?
There's no use to the town. It doesn't interfere with the township's use of that basin or drainage area. It's not really a basin as you can look today with Coleman's Corner. It just seems to be an area that just drains in.
Does this increase the market value of that property? I think the answer would be yes, but for tax purposes, does it?
Well, they'll get an added assessment, right? Whatever she'll have that.
Is she aware of that?
I told her this, but she's selling.
Yeah.
So if you agree to this, and she's gonna sell this on the 10th, she's got to sell it coming up on the 10th. Otherwise, that buyer, she said, well,
Yeah,
we'll
she's, I got a problem with this.
You guys okay with this?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Tom?
Yeah, just, I'm going to put a resolution on the next meeting to authorize advertisement for broker record on health insurance.
Okay.
I think it expires in the end of either September or October, so we have plenty of time.
All right. Council liaison report, Mr. Schmidt.
Nothing at this time?
Thank you very much. Mrs. Stubbs.
I was unable to attend our last meeting, so I don't understand.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mignone.
There was no meeting, so nothing to report.
Okay. The Gloucester Township MUA had their meeting 10 days ago, and they presented their audit. It was a clean audit for the last fiscal year. That's all I have to report from the MUA. No findings.
Housing Authority hasn't, did not meet.
Mr. Hudson.
I attended the last meeting, I don't have notes with me, but everything seems to be going fine.
Am I correct that there is going to, Republic Bank is going to be on Blackwood Covington Road by the, is it the Getty Station?
The Getty Station.
Is that which is?
No, yeah, Shell.
The Shell
Shell
Station.
Station.
Shell Station.
Right next to
And
very nice presentation.
And Bimbo is expanding their Enemans property there.
Yeah,
I didn't-
aren't they buying,
They're
I didn't
adding
think
a
so.
warehouse.
Yeah,
Taking out
the Republic, that is at
Yeah,
the Shell.
Okay, at the Shell station,
location, yeah.
okay.
So they're
Very
taking
nice.
that out?
I think so.
what's
It is
getting
coming out.
Virgin here?
When they expand, I think so. That's what I was told.
And that's pretty good. Bimbo is the largest baking company in the world.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's a Mexican company that just bought all these brands. They
Mhm.
just kept the names. Sara Lee, Enemans, Stroman.
Oh, they're all part of
Yeah.
it?
Ms. Swears.
They canceled the July meeting, so there's nothing to report.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everyone. See you tomorrow, Cash Night Out.
Yes.
5:45 for pictures
Here?
in front.
Right out front,
Yeah.
5:45?
Tom, yes, I